They say power reveals character, but sometimes it exposes arrogance so loud it echoes, right before it collapses. This is a story about a man who believed money made him untouchable, and another man the world trained to overlook. A delivery uniform, a luxury boardroom, and one contract that would turn humiliation into history. Stay with me because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about restraint, timing, and justice served ice cold. Marcus Hill woke up before the sun, like he always did. For 12 a.m., the city outside his one-bedroom apartment was still quiet, the kind of silence that only existed before the world remembered how cruel it could be. Marcus stretched slowly, careful with his left shoulder, an old injury from a job that promised growth opportunities and delivered layoffs instead. He pulled on his delivery uniform, faded navy shirt, reflective vest, boots worn thin at the heel. To most people, this outfit meant invisible. To Marcus, it meant survival. He brewed cheap coffee and stared at the framed photo on his wall. His late mother, smiling, proud. She'd worked 2 jobs so he could finish college. She never got to see what he became after. People assumed Marcus was just another delivery driver. They never asked why a man with an MBA and a quiet, calculating mind chose silence over explanation. By 7 a.m., Marcus was loading crates into his truck. One delivery stood out: Blackwell Industries Executive Tower. High priority, boardroom level, direct delivery required. Marcus read the name on the order: Richard Blackwell, CEO. The name didn't faze him, yet Blackwell Industries was legendary: glass walls, private elevators, billion-dollar deals sealed over imported espresso. Marcus parked at the loading dock and followed protocol, clipboard in hand. As he waited for clearance, employees in tailored suits passed him without a glance. A few stared, their eyes sliding off him like rain on glass. "Delivery for the executive floor," Marcus said calmly. The guard barely looked up. "Elevator C. Don't wander." Marcus nodded. The doors opened into a world that smelled like money and authority. Polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, a long conference table where powerful people argued over numbers that could change lives. At the head of the table stood Richard Blackwell himself, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, a man who had never waited for anything in his life. Marcus stepped forward. "Sir, delivery for..." Blackwell turned and sneered. "Who let him up here?" Blackwell snapped, loud enough for the entire room. The board members froze. Marcus stood still, clipboard steady in his hand. "This is a boardroom, not a loading dock," Blackwell continued. "Do you have any idea how much money is discussed in this room?" Marcus kept his voice calm. "I'm just here to deliver," Blackwell laughed. "Not humor, contempt. People like you should learn their place," he said. "Set it down and leave." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Not anger, recognition, because for the first time, Blackwell had no idea who he was talking to. Richard Blackwell thrived on humiliation. It wasn't enough for him to win. Others had to lose publicly. The boardroom sat in stunned silence as Blackwell continued his performance. "You drivers think you're part of the company now?" he said, waving a dismissive hand. "You deliver boxes. That's it. No opinions. No presence." A few executives chuckled nervously. Marcus felt every eye on him, some with pity, others with quiet agreement. He placed the crate gently beside the table, exactly where protocol required. "Sir, I need a signature," Marcus said evenly. Blackwell scoffed. "You need an education." Then he leaned in closer. "Let me give you some advice," Blackwell said loudly. "Work harder. Maybe one day you won't be wearing that embarrassing vest." The irony sat heavy in the air. Marcus looked down at the clipboard, then back up. "I appreciate the advice," he said calmly. That calm irritated Blackwell more than anger ever could. "What's your name?" Blackwell demanded. Marcus paused for half a second. "Marcus Hill." Blackwell smirked. "Figures." He signed the clipboard with a sharp, aggressive stroke. "Now get out. Adults are working." Marcus nodded once. As he turned to leave, a young woman at the far end of the table, legal counsel, watched him closely. Something about the name had struck her. She frowned but said nothing. The elevator doors closed behind Marcus. Inside the steel box, he exhaled slowly. The humiliation hadn't surprised him. Confirmed something. Blackwell hadn't changed. And that meant the next part would hurt more. Back in his truck, Marcus sat for a moment before starting the engine. He pulled out his phone and opened an email thread marked confidential. Final review. Attached was a contract worth hundreds of millions. One Blackwell had been bragging about for weeks. One that would decide the future of his company. Marcus typed a single message. Proceed as scheduled. Then he drove away. 2 hours later, Richard Blackwell stood at the podium in the same boardroom, glowing. Today, he announced, we finalized the partnership that will secure Blackwell Industries for the next decade. Applause filled the room. The doors opened again. This time, Marcus Hill didn't walk in wearing a delivery vest. He wore a tailored charcoal suit. Silence hit the room like a dropped glass. Blackwell's smile faltered. Marcus walked calmly to the opposite end of the table and took a seat. Richard blinked. Who the hell are you? Marcus met his eyes. The man whose name is on your contract. A murmur rippled through the room. The legal counsel's eyes widened. Blackwell laughed nervously. That's not funny. Marcus slid a folder across the table. On the cover, Hill and Associates majority stakeholder. Blackwell opened it. His face drained of color. This is a mistake, he stammered. Marcus leaned forward slightly. You see, Richard, Hill and Associates quietly acquired controlling interest in the subsidiary you're contracting with. The room erupted in whispers. You insulted me this morning, Marcus continued calmly. But you negotiated with me for 6 months. Blackwell's hands shook. You're the investor? He whispered. Marcus nodded. The one you dismissed as not worth meeting in person. The irony was surgical. Blackwell swallowed hard. I didn't know. Marcus's voice remained steady. No, you assumed. He stood. And assumptions, he said, are expensive. The boardroom had shifted. The same people who laughed earlier now sat rigid, afraid to breathe. Blackwell tried to recover. Look, Mr. Hill, Marcus. Let's talk privately. Marcus shook his head. No, public is fine. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Marcus turned to the board. I'll be brief. Hill and Associates is withdrawing from the deal. Gasped. Blackwell stood abruptly. You can't do this. Marcus met his eyes. Actually, I can. He gestured to the legal counsel. Check clause 14. She flipped pages, then nodded slowly. Blackwell's voice cracked. You're doing this because of a misunderstanding? Marcus replied softly. No, I'm doing this because of who you are when you think no one important is watching. Silence. Blackwell collapsed back into his chair. Marcus continued. But don't worry, we're not leaving empty-handed. He slid another document forward. We're acquiring Blackwell Industries. The room exploded. Blackwell stared at the page like it was written in another language. Marcus leaned in one last time. You told me to know my place, he said quietly. Now you know yours. Days later, headlines flooded the internet. Rich CEO loses company after boardroom meltdown, delivery driver revealed as majority owner. Richard Blackwell resigned. No farewell speech. No applause. Marcus stood alone in the boardroom one final time, staring out the same windows. Power felt different than he imagined. He didn't feel victorious. He felt resolved. He rehired staff Blackwell had cut, promoted people Blackwell ignored, instituted policies built on dignity. When asked why he stayed silent for so long, Marcus answered simply, because power doesn't need to announce itself. Months later, Marcus saw a delivery driver struggling with a heavy crate outside the building. He walked over and helped lift it. The driver looked stunned. Sir, you don't have to. Marcus smiled. I know. As the man walked away, Marcus thought of his mother, of mornings before dawn, of rooms where he wasn't supposed to speak, and of a CEO who taught him the greatest lesson by failing it. This story isn't about revenge. It's about restraint, about watching, about knowing that how you treat the powerless says everything about who you are. Because one day, the person you overlook may be the one holding the pen. And when that day comes, justice doesn't raise its voice. It signs the contract. If you loved seeing justice served, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because on this channel, we uncover the story's power tried to hide.